With us this morning, Dr. Matthew Howie, who's the medical director of the Department of Health in New York City, and I'm sure getting ready for July 4th himself. But good morning, Dr. Howie. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. Kind of excited about the Olympics as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Of course, it was put off for a year. I've been interested in the mentality of a lot of the athletes who kind of built into a mental framework to get ready last year, and all of a sudden there it was canceled. And now they're coming back this year. And again, there was some question about whether or not Japan was going to host the Olympics this year or whether they were going to close it down over COVID. So, these athletes now having to come back decide whether to come back and do another year of training to get ready for it or not. That's been really kind of an interesting story along the way as you've watched the trials and all those kind of things, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that kind of is almost like a microcosm of what we've all been dealing with, was put it off. How long do you put it off for? What's the sacrifice worth? I mean, that's a tough thing. I remember the Moscow Olympics where the U.S. held out on that one as well. That was a 4-year wait for the next round. So this seems a little easier, although the uncertainty is there.
We see so many changes, and you're right, in what has happened over the last year and a half. Now, one of the things we're hearing a lot about right now is this new variant that is out there in COVID, and I know in California they're having particular concerns about that. Other countries we're seeing it. A lot of people are saying, "Oh no, not again." What is our take on this? I hear it's very contagious, and yet at the same time, it's not near as bad. Give us the inside scoop on this, if you will, Dr. Howie.
I mean, in a weird way, this is the natural progression, right? I mean, we've had a lot of circulating virus, if you kind of take it as a large head count, and there's a natural mutation rate that occurs, and so you're going to see mutations that occur, some that are unsuccessful, and we never hear about them because obviously they don't work, get transmitted well. But the virus is kind of designed to build a better virus over time. That's kind of the way it works. So it's going to be a little bit like, trying to play catch up for a while. So not a surprise we have a new variant that is a little better at doing what it's supposed to do in terms of transmitting and promoting itself, and maybe a little less dangerous that allows it to stick around longer so it can be transmitted better. So from a virus standpoint, this is not unexpected. The good news is, we are seeing some protection still from vaccine and natural infection. And I think this is just the next round. This was not going to be a single round knockout.
Have we gotten to a point yet where we're talking about, let's say, booster shots down the line? I mean, we're just getting through the first, whole 2 rounds or a round, depending on which vaccine you're using, of the COVID vaccine. But obviously people are going to be talking about this endemically going forward, much like we talk about the flu shots. We say, okay, have you gotten your flu shot here during the fall or the early winter? Are we talking about that now? And if so, where are we at on that whole spectrum right now, Dr. Howie?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where we're still on the point where we're developing and going. There's multiple tracks. There's like the emergency use authorization track, and we had to get there. We were too many people becoming sick, too many people dying. So that was a completely appropriate and reasonable response. But now some of the harder work of developing virus vaccines that have a little more, I won't say staying power, but they have a little more ability for us to allow us to do mass vaccination in a seasonal standpoint without as much infrastructure to support it. That's kind of where we're moving towards. And hopefully this becomes more of a virus like the flu. They're not the same virus, but hopefully it becomes one over time. I will say time will tell, but I don't think that we're there yet where we can kind of go, okay, this is just one of those viruses that is a seasonal annoyance. We're
talking with Dr. Matthew Howie this morning, Medical Director for the Department of Health in New York City. From a positive standpoint, and there's not a lot of positive you can think about with COVID, but from a positive standpoint, when you look back now and you think in the very beginning we were talking about, maybe 3-4 years till we're able to develop a vaccine for this and so forth. What has been done in the last year is nothing short of miraculous. Am I overstating that when I say that?
Not at all. It is one of those things you do kind of have to look, when you have that moment to pause and look at it, you go, this was an extraordinary year, both in the negatives and the frustrations, but also in just our ability to respond and utilize the resources that we have, and even just test out resources we've never even been able to test out before. Miraculous, extraordinary, those words are not overplaying it.
This past Monday, obviously, we took the mask rule away in a lot of places. Some still have it. Places where you congregate in smaller areas. I know some health facilities still have it, airplanes, different places like that. But for the most part, there's kind of this new mask down mentality in the country. As we go to July 4th weekend, and obviously there'll be a lot of parties and get-togethers and things like that, what would you say to people in terms of handling this new mask down mentality in our country?
I understand the drive and the desire for us to get together to figure out what the new normal is, and I think we all are. You hit kind of the key points. I think there are certain things that are just not going to be able to go back to the previous way that we did them. I think we're not going to see masks go away when it comes to healthcare facilities. It's just too risky. Congregate living situations where you just cannot space, things that you talked about in terms of events where you're just going to be close, things like when you're on a plane. We're not seeing that's not going to go away, and it shouldn't go away. Those are important lessons. And we also learn the importance that physical distancing makes a difference. That if you wear a mask and you do physical distance, you do improve that. And I think we need to make sure that we kind of carve out that space for those areas of higher risk and for those individuals who actually are making this a choice to maintain their own safety as well as those around them. And this is an important tool that we have. We shouldn't just forget about it now that it's gotten a little less intense.
Is it something that has been long overdue? Maybe that's a question I need to ask. I don't think I've ever asked you that question in the times we've talked. Is the masking something that's overdue where we never used it before for different things and for the most part, and now we do? And is that something that's going to kind of be here to stay in some way, shape, or form?
I think you're right. I mean, overdue would have. I don't know if I would say overdue, but it's not a surprise. I mean, we've seen other countries use masks during certain seasons.
Right.
Because of transmission, and I think we've looked at that and kind of gone, wow, glad we're not there. But the reality is these seasonal viruses do respond to masking and that sort of protection. And I think this is a great lesson in, it taught us in a harsh and terrible way. We can do more than just kind of say, hey, accept carte blanche, this is how it has to be. That we can push back and we can do things collectively that actually protect each other.
Sounds like you're somewhere on a middle ground there instead of this all one end and all one other end. That there's some common sense stuff we can learn from here as we move forward. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement. I think that we have to be able to move forward. I don't think any of us can continue in the way that we did it before, but I think we need to be wise about how we do it. And again, I think we need to take the lessons that we learned and not forget about them just because they were so frustrating and sometimes polarizing. They're still important lessons to take away.
Dr. Matthew Howie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, and thanks for getting up early with us.
Hey, happy to be there.